Okay, hi guys. Thank you for having me here. So this presentation is going to be quite different to what you have seen today because it's more focused on the future. It's more about we're having some API banking changes coming up, and the focus is how is the world going to change with this? What are the opportunities there in the market? And so if any of you is thinking of quitting their jobs and starting a fintech or a startup, this might be a great place to start. If anyone is thinking of pivoting their business, this is a great place to start. If you have a lot of spare cash and you want to invest in startups, this is also a great place to invest right now because we're going to see a lot of revolution happening. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Neil. I'm the CEO of B2B Pay, and we're an early-stage fintech startup, not in the API open space, but in the payment space in international transactions. My background is business and finance. I worked as a consultant, restructuring in the multinational space, SMEs, and also for a lot of IT projects and startups financing. Okay, before we get started, I'll just give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about. So just in case there are people who don't know what Payment Service Directive 2 is, I'll give a quick overview on that. I'll give you an overview of what's happening in the fintech world so far. Fintech is very hot, and just give an overview of what's happening, how the fintech world ties into the PSD2 changes which are coming about, and then obviously sort of to the main topic of the talk is that who is the big beneficiaries? And in my view, the biggest beneficiaries are going to be small to medium-sized businesses. And that's also where the money is, and that's where you will see a lot of innovation and uptake. So to start with PSD2, this is probably the most popular graph you see when it comes to big data. Any big data conference you go to, there will be a graph saying, hey, look, there's this information on Facebook, but there's all this data you can do and analyze below. It can tell you everything about who you know, what you bought, what you liked, everything. This is always the same thing on big data. But actually, banking data is very different. It's completely closed off. There is no access to banking data. Yes, the banks will tell you you can log in with all those PIN numbers into corporate banking and get a little bit of data. But the reality is all this information, which is a huge gold mine, is locked away. No one has access to it. From your Facebook, I can't really tell anything except who your friends are, what bar you went to last night. From your banking information, I can tell how profitable a business is, how much you spend on loans, how much you spend on working capital, where your customers are, where your suppliers are, how much you pay your employees, everything. There's a lot of information. No one has access to it, and consumers don't really use it because it's not really user-friendly to use this banking data. So I think the European Union has sort of realized that you have all these banks sitting with all this data and nothing's being done with it. And it's not just a money-making scheme, it's that this data can be used in a lot of ways, to improve processes, improve services, and make the whole field more competitive. So what PSD2, which is for people who are not from Europe, it's called Payment Service Directive 2. It comes into force actually next year, I think in Jan next year, if I'm not mistaken. What it says is that a bank has to provide all the banking information to a third party if they meet certain requirements, which is they got permission from the consumer to use the data, and they have certain, obviously, security requirements to use this data. So one thing is, as a third-party provider, let's say I'm just your accountant or your auditor. I can now fully access your bank data and do two things. One thing is I can see everything that you have done. And the second thing I can do is also do stuff. So I can actually make payments. Why can I not connect my email to my bank account? It's frustrating for me. I get invoices in my email every day, and I have to save them. Why can't I just connect my bank to my email? Those are the sort of things you can't do today. And that's what PSD2 allows. So in recap, PSD2, all it does is let you access data as a third party, which has not been possible today. Before I go ahead, I'm just going to quickly ask, does everyone know what PSD2 is? Because that's pretty important. If you have a question, is it better? No? Okay, so everyone knows an overview of what PSD2 is, which is access to data, making it easier. So before we look at what are the use cases of PSD2, let's look at FinTech. FinTech has been very, very hot for the last 5 years. There's a lot of investment going in. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's starting a FinTech. And this is a really cool graph. This is from a venture capital fund in the US. And what they have done here is they have mapped out the different functions of a bank. So you obviously have lending, personal finance, institutional investments, financial research, etc. And what they have done is that they've sort of overlaid which are the fintechs in this space. And these are only the successful fintechs. And as you can see, every single aspect of a bank is under attack. Like every area of a bank there is a fintech innovating in it. And that's an amazing thing. But there's a flip side to this. When you actually look at the real numbers, it's actually really depressing. Fintechs only make up 0.00% of real transactions. Most of the money in today's world, whether it's lending, payments, it still flows through banks. A few users use fintech, but most of SMEs, corporates don't use fintechs. So it's sort of half full, half empty situation right now. Yes, there's a lot of innovation, but in actual numbers, it's negligible how many people and things people use fintechs. Second slide before we move about fintech is about whether it's a revolution or just a process improvement. The average bank, and we're talking about large banks here, provide 800 different products. That's a crazy number. Think about it. The average bank, like Nordic, provides 800 different products. And which that means that they provide 800 very, very crappy products, because there's no way anyone can build 800 good products. And what fintechs have done is they have come into those 800 products and said, hey, this is one product. Let's look at just payments to Brazil. We will make that process amazing. And that's actually been most of the fintech revolution or process improvement so far. So for example, in payments, you have TransferWise. They're not really any different. I don't know if you know TransferWise, but they're really big in the fintech space for making international personal payments. At the end of the day, they're just a really good front end, and they provide a lot of cost savings. But in terms of innovation, it's not really that innovative. Same thing with P2B lending. P2B lending was really cool, but most P2B lenders actually just borrow from the bank and then lend to people who the banks normally don't borrow to. Same thing with insurance. Insurance right now is just a comparison site, and mobile apps are great, but again, it's not revolutionary. It's just bringing the mobile technology over to the banking space. So what we have seen in fintech so far is just process improvement. And I'd probably say blockchain is the only place where you could say Bitcoin is really revolutionary. It's a way of doing things which really has not been done previously. And we will see in the next 5 to 10 years what the use is of this. So fintech has been great. The user experience is amazing. It's improving a lot of processes. But the fact is, SMEs don't use fintech. So it comes to the main question, why are SMEs, which would benefit the most from fintechs, not grabbing these opportunities? The first is resources. I do a lot of presentations for chambers of commerce, and every time after a presentation, I get the CEO or the CFO coming to me and asking me for payment advice, because they're just used to doing the things old-fashioned way. They deal with a bank, they get the resources from the bank and make their payments. They don't have treasury staff. They don't have, they don't use PwC Consulting or McKinsey's to tell them what the latest technology is in this space. So they don't have the time, because they're really busy, or the resources to do anything about it. Too much uncertainty. I mean, the fact is that you're taking a gamble. SMEs are conservative. Corporates are conservative. If you go with a fintech, you're taking a big gamble. And no one wants that when it comes to money. So there is a huge hesitancy of moving to fintechs. And the third thing, and this is the result of the first two problems, is that SMEs actually spend on average more than 5 times than a large corporate does. Just as an example, let's look at FX. If you're a large corporate, you have a treasury team which will get you the best deals from like 10 banks globally. With the SME, you don't get all these amazing services from the bank. You just take whatever the banks offer you. And that comes to software, payment processing, accounting, everything. SMEs end up spending a lot, mainly because they're not willing to switch to the fintech new technology, which is better suited for them. Okay, so now we look, PSD2 is coming next year. We have amazing technology in fintech. SMEs are not using it. Why is suddenly that going to enable SMEs to suddenly start using all this new technology? Well, the answer comes down to two parts: sales and integration. So let's start by talking about sales. PSD2 is going to change the sale process. And I'll give you a real-life example about our firm. We are in the B2B payment space, and we do cross-border transactions. This is how a sales process works. Let's say I'm at a conference. You approach me saying, hey, Neil, we're wasting a lot of money on international transfers. I need your help. So I talk to them. Then they put me in touch with the accounting person, which is like a 50-year-old guy who all he does is types a little bit of data in the accounting system. He knows nothing about international payments. So I have to ask them 100 questions over months. It's like, no, I'm sorry, busy. I can't give you data, like how many payments you make per month, which countries are you making payments to, what currencies do you use, do you use hedges, do you use forward contracts. The sales process in the payment space is painful because we don't have access to data, which means we can't really tell you we can offer a better product. So a sales process in the FX space takes any time between 5 to 6 months. And by then, you either have lost the client or it's probably not even worth it. And it's a really painful process both for you and for the company because you have to fill out all kinds of Excels about data and things like that. And here's where PSD2 comes in. So now you come to me as a CEO of a small, say, manufacturing Swedish company. So, hey, Neil, we do a lot of international transactions. Can you really help me? It's like, great, Stefan, thank you. Just give me permission to our data. This is a bit simplistic, but give me permission to our data. Now I can access all your transactions that you have done globally. I can see whether you have suppliers in China sending payments to Brazil or transactions salaried people in India, and automatically analyze the data and say, hey, here is an offer we can make. You're getting screwed over by Nordic. I hope no one is here from Nordic. I can cut down the cost by 60%, and we have an amazing user interface. So the sales process for B2B sales, because of PSD2, and you can have a lot of things. Look at, for example, salaries. If you want to pay salaries, if you want to switch, it's a really painful process. This will make it easier. The second thing is integration. I think anyone who's worked in large businesses or SMEs will tell you switching products is really hard. But now this process is going to become a lot simpler because you can have cloud solutions which directly interact with your accounting data and your banking data. And one example, I think a simple example is salaries. If I told your company, hey, you need to switch over your salary system because, hey, we have like any sales thing, we have the best, fastest, and easiest solution on the market. It's really complicated. First, I have to show you a demo, which probably doesn't fit in with your company. Then we have to do some kind of implementation. Then we have to have a switch over process. With PSD2, that all goes away because all you have to do is log into my service on the cloud. I can automatically retrieve all your banking data, potentially some of your accounting data, already know that, okay, you pay 10 salaries per month to 10 people, integrate all that data into the new salary system, and just say, hey, if you want to start using our product, first, here's a live demo, and then you just need to create 3 clicks to integrate and start using our product from next month. Gone is the 3 months sales cycle and the 3 months integration cycle. So this is going to be a huge change for fintechs to get SME clients. Please stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm fine with that. Okay, so what are we going to see in next coming years with PSD2? What we're going to see is something similar to what we saw with app stores. I mean, sure, there were some apps before Apple launched the App Store, but it was all crap. And what you have now is you have an app store where there's rules. There's sort of rules of engagement, and probably we need a really good lawyer to set those rules of engagement in terms of access to data and things like that. But what we have now is we have millions of apps on the app store for all kinds of reasons. You have Tinder. I don't know if Steve Jobs would have ever imagined that there would be an app where you can swipe right and find the love of your life. You never know what's going to happen with this data. What you're going to have is you're going to have lots of different services which are going to be built on top of banking data, from everything from accounting systems, auditing systems, payment solutions, analytical tools, and things like that. Cool. So the last sort of couple of slides is, this is my take on where I see this innovation happening in the SME space. Obviously, as I said, in the App Store, there's a million apps doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of different business cases. But these are the areas where I see that you're going to see an immediate impact. So the first is treasury systems and consultants. SMEs don't really have treasury systems, cash management tools, or consultants. They don't use them. Big companies have that to negotiate on their behalf, to manage their cash flows. What you're going to see is an immediate use of these corporate systems being put in the cloud and sort of immediately being able to sort of provide a white black box solution to SMEs. And that's going to change a lot of internal processes within smaller companies. Business intelligence tools. Business intelligence tools is, again, another area small companies don't use. Big corporates have all kinds of SAP business intelligence tools. Again, the problem comes to they're really expensive, and they are really hard to use and hard to integrate. But now with PSD2, you're going to see, again, cloud-based business tools which can really analyze the data from your sales cycles to everything else, to better provide sort of decision-making to a small startup, where should be investing it, and things like that. Reporting tools. I'll give you an example about this. We use Holvi Bank, which is a Finnish innovation bank. Normally, when we do an audit, it takes 2 weeks because I send my accounting stuff to the auditor, then he'll say, hey, you're missing all this data. Now all we do is we give him email access to our Holvi account, which has all our banking information, our invoices. So the audit only took 1 day as compared to 2 weeks because he has all the information he needs. I do not need to deal with Excel sheets and things like that. So you're going to see a lot of the reporting processes change in SME because of this. Very generic, hundreds of IT systems. If you look at big corporates, they use hundreds of IT systems, from HR to things like that. SMEs don't use it, but now you think with APIs, there will be a use case for that. Salaries will be the first one, I think, and invoicing will be the first one, and payments. Access to corporate banking. Corporate banking is super cool if anyone has ever worked in corporates. You have so much. It's like you have your own butler at the bank, and they can do everything for you. You get the best rates. You get the most fancy financial products. SMEs don't get any of that. They get expensive products, very rigid, and no one will ever answer your call. And now what you're going to see with PSD2 is that you're going to see third parties who can step in and play the role of a corporate banking specialist. Same thing with currency trading flows. If you're a multinational, you can access trading flows on the currency space globally. SMEs can't do that, but I think with the PSD2, you're going to see that. And you're already seeing that in the UK quite a lot, but Nordics, Germany are more conservative, but with PSD2, the decision will be a lot easier. Okay, so that was an quick overview of where I see the innovation things happening, but you're going to have thousands of things, like your Gmail connected to your bank account, your invoices connected to your bank account, and all kinds of things. Just a couple of slides, if I have another minute, if I can talk for another minute. So a lot of the things I talk about, they might sound like it's going to happen in next year, but it's not true. A lot of the things I'm talking about already happening. And here's 2 examples. Open banking projects and Figo in Germany. Figo in Germany is probably the most ahead fintech in this space. They're literally like an app store. If you access them via API, you can access 90% of banking data in Germany. So with one API, you can access 1,000 APIs for every bank. So you don't have to go to individual banks and set up APIs. And just as an example, they had a hackathon just last week or 2 weeks ago, and you can just see there were 25 entities, and these are all kinds of different products that they came up with. There was a bank, a pizza. I have no idea what that does, but there's obviously a use case for maybe pizzas being delivered straight or from your bank account to your home or something like that. But you can see a lot of innovation already happening, and most of these products will be live, even though PSD2 has not gone ahead. Cool. So that was my presentation about where I see the future in PSD2. So again, don't consider this legal advice to quit your jobs or start investing, but this is definitely an area you guys should look into. Thank you.